over in Westwood. And this has been a topic in the chat. People with a lot of things to say. And two parts to this. First, one part is, what do you think about the UCLA coaching search generally? But the part that's really interesting to USC fans, we all know it's coming. Like, I have to ask you guys about this. D'Anton Lynn, he was at UCLA 2 years ago. He was the defensive coordinator. And thank goodness Martin Jarmond, absolutely bungled that whole transition. He didn't fire Chip Kelly right away, right after the end of that 2023 regular season. He dithered, he dilly-dallied, and that enabled Lincoln Riley to swoop in and poach D'Anton Lynn, just a godsend for the USC program. But, D'Anton Lynn's not going to be defensive coordinator at USC forever. But does he stay here to try and win a national championship? Does he stay here to kind of burnish his credentials and kind of maybe carve out like a 2, 3, 4 year career? Or does he want his hands on a D1 head coaching job? Is he going to go to the NFL perhaps? Is that going to be his next stop after USC? Let's just talk about D'Anton Lynn relative to the UCLA job and D'Anton Lynn's coaching future, because it's obvious. It's an obvious point of conversation in USC circles this week. Ethan first, Crash second.
I actually have kind of a strong opinion about this, and I wrote an article about it today. I think that there's no way at all that he goes to UCLA, period. End of sentence. I just don't – I think that he has so much going for him right now at USC. Like, USC has some of the best position coaches in the business, handpicked by him. Full disclosure, right? They have Rob Ryan, they have Eric Henderson, Doug Belk. Yep, dog work. And like, UCLA is in shambles. Like, UCLA is they're going to be building from the ground up. It's going to take him like 5, 6 or more years to get them to any kind of national prominence if he's lucky. So, just on a basic level, it looks like that. But also, Dan Lynn's not stupid. Like, he knew when like the whole Chip Kelly transition was happening that he had a shot at the head coaching job. Like, it seems really, because Chip Kelly was looking at NFL jobs like that entire time before he ended up going to Ohio State. Like, Chip Kelly wanted out, just as much as the university wanted him out. So I don't think that there's any world where, D'Anton Lynn is like, oh, USC offered me, I'm going to go to USC. And then like a couple months later when Chip Kelly leaves, he's like, oh, I kind of regret that. I want to go back to UCLA. Like, there's just no shot. Will D'Anton Lynn eventually become a head coach somewhere else? Absolutely. Will he get NFL opportunities? Certainly. Is now the time to leave? Absolutely not. He has too much going for him in the, at USC in the coaching department. They're paying him plenty of money. He has that great 2026 recruiting class coming in. Not all of them are going to follow him to UCLA either. If, he can't just assume that he, goes across town, that all of his recruits are going to follow him. Some of them will, but some of them are getting paid top dollar by USC as well. And, are committing to the position coaches and all that kind of stuff. Like, USC is just so much of a better environment to recruit players right now. So it would be a colossally dumb move for D'Anton Lynn's career, for, his hopes at even moving up beyond the UCLA job. I'm not even saying D'Anton Lynn will never coach at UCLA again. There's no world in which him moving to UCLA in 2026 makes any sense to me, because, like I said, everything's going for him right now at USC. He has the opportunity to compete for a national championship potentially, especially depending on how this year goes. The only way that I can see it happening is like USC's defense, like, magically by the end of the year is like top 5 in the country. They go undefeated or lose one game and win the national championship. And then it's like, well, I've accomplished everything I need to at USC, so maybe I'll pack up and leave. But like, that's that would be like the dream scenario. And I think even then, like, it's like, why leave when you have a chance to run it back and you have all these top recruits coming in that, you recruited. And and he has Chad Bowden too, one of the best, rising young GMs in college football. There's just so much going for him right now. And, the move to USC has been so good for his career and so good for outsiders, perception of him as well. Like, his people are only going to want him more the longer he stays at USC. They're only going to want to pay him more money. The NFL is only going to give him a longer look. Like, there's no reason for him to go and lead a very sad, very sorry UCLA program for the next 5 or 6 years before they become relevant again. And UCLA is going to have plenty of people who want to coach there. It's not like a program that's dead in the water. They're still UCLA. They still have the history. There's plenty of group of 5 coaches and coordinators at other schools that will want to come. And I'm sure they'll pursue D'Anton Lynn, but I'd be surprised if D'Anton Lynn even took an interview with UCLA. I just don't think there's any reason for him to leave it at all.
I think he would if it's maybe the only job that he gets. And I think we got to keep one thing in mind. We're heading into week 4. So far, only 2 coaches have been fired at the Power Conference, have been fired so far. And more will follow. That's inevitable. I mean, it seems like from all accounts that Florida's Billy Napier could be next, especially if the Gators lose this week, and then they'll be going into a bye. But I think he would take it just because he seems like he wants to advance his career. And I mean, we saw last year that he could have gone back to his alma mater in Penn State. James Franklin was in LA to personally court Lynn to come back and be a Nittany Lion again. And Lynn refused. I think I'm going to assume he likes being in Southern California. And it sounded like when he left UCLA, he didn't even have to move houses. So that's convenient. And 2, also, I think he's got his eyes on a head coaching job. Now, whether that's UCLA or elsewhere, I think he could be gone after this year, and I don't think anyone can blame him for it. But if UCLA is the only one that offers, I think he's going to take it because I think he wants to, oversee an entire program. Although it definitely doesn't help.
All right. This is a yes or no question. No explanation, just yes or no. If UCLA fires athletic director Martin Jarmond and comes up with a big restructuring plan, does this change any of the calculus related to D'Anton Lynn? Yes or no?
No.
I think it could, though. I think that was kind of what I was going to. So I think,
okay.
Maybe/yes. Okay.
Yes.
All right. So that's the D'Anton Lynn part of the UCLA head coaching search. Now let's just go into the general head coaching search. Any names other than D'Anton Lynn? Let's just remove D'Anton Lynn from the picture. Any other names, if hired at UCLA, that would have you going, darn, UCLA got a good hire. Oh no. Is there any name like that, or is UCLA just such a dumpster fire it doesn't matter? How about your takes on that? Ethan first, Crash second.
I don't really see them getting that kind of name just because of the state of the program. Like, I think that they'll pursue that. It would have to be like a rising group of 5, like Dan Mullen. Dan Mullen might be the only one. I think that Dan Mullen's the only guy who I could actually see going to UCLA. John Gruden, actually, Archer Quick in the chat. That's another one, because John Gruden's just not getting any job offers anywhere else. So that would be one, because if anybody's going to be desperate enough to go to UCLA with the kind of resume that would make me scared, it's John Gruden. But aside from him and maybe Dan Mullen, I just don't think UCLA has that kind of pull. I think that they can make a good hire? Absolutely. I think that they could find someone in the group of 5 that, turns out really well for them, but I don't think they have the pull right now to get somebody besides, Dan Mullen that's really going to, grind my gears, so to speak.
One name that I've been hearing popping up from just reading and I've been hearing over the last 2 weeks, and this has been even last year, that I think especially John Canzano of johncanzano.com, as well as John Wilner of the Bay Area News Group, have talked a lot about, is Jonathan Smith. So that one I've kind of just been thinking about, but I'm just wondering, would he want to? It makes sense. Obviously, he's got the ties to LA, but it seems like, would he want to hold out maybe for USC? I feel like, or maybe a bigger job like that, or Washington, if he's going to come back to the West Coast. I feel like he would not want to go to UCLA, especially with the situation and especially with the way that UCLA is conducting their search. It's not just Jarman and a couple of his associate ADs. They're assembling this committee of, I think they said, sports and business executives and UCLA greats, I think is what it was. And that doesn't seem like it's not going to really, help. It seems like if you're going to make this hire, it's got to be the AD going, okay, this is the guy I want. We're going to support him and make sure he gets everything he needs to support to win. And so for that reason, I know they talk about him like he's going to go, but I don't know if I'd see Smith holding out there, especially because it seems like he's got a solid thing at Michigan State at the moment.
All right, I just want to offer an extra note on this, and I'm not predicting what's going to happen. Okay, I want to be very clear about that. But people mentioned John Gruden. There's something unique about John Gruden, and there's another person who has something in common with John Gruden, and that's Pat Fitzgerald, the former Northwestern coach, recently got exonerated in court, reached a settlement with Northwestern, so he's going to be back on the open market. John Gruden and Pat Fitzgerald are both unemployed. So what that means is UCLA can interview them now, and that doesn't apply to any of the other coaches on the market. That is just something to watch for. I'm not predicting anything, but I'm just saying UCLA is at liberty. UCLA is free to have conversations with those guys, hire them now if it wants to, and kind of get rolling on a new NIL plan, a new recruiting strategy, lining up a new AD, everything. So those are just two names to watch for purely in terms of if UCLA wants to do something preemptively. Those are two options. And specifically with Pat Fitzgerald, let's mention this other point. Luke Fickell is on the hot seat at Wisconsin, and of course is staying in the Big Ten. Pat Fitzgerald would be a natural fit in Madison with the Badgers. I mean, tough physical football, great linebacker play, the things that Wisconsin is known for, the things that Wisconsin prides itself on, Pat Fitzgerald can revive and deliver to Madison. Of course, being in the Midwest, it would probably be where Pat Fitzgerald would want to go. So, if I'm Wisconsin's athletic director, I'm thinking about firing Luke Fickell now so that I can, get Pat Fitzgerald in the door, and UCLA might want to think about, let's lock down Pat Fitzgerald now so that Wisconsin can't make a move. So just not predicting anything, but just those are, in terms of the chess pieces and the chess moves and what schools can do to address their coaching situations in the Big Ten. Those are two Big Ten coaching situations, something to think about as we move